Hi everyone, Creating Engaging and Powerful YAC Projects Part 2. The Oregon School-Based Health Alliance is offering this webinar through a contract with the School-Based Health Center State Program Office. And today's webinar, as you might be able to tell because it's Part 2, is a follow-up to a webinar that we did last spring. And we will include a link to that webinar on our website following the webinar. So we have several speakers on today's webinar who will be sharing information on their YAC projects from across the state. I am going to let each of them introduce themselves, but my name is Ashley McAllister, and I am the program manager at the Oregon School-Based Health Alliance. I also use she, her pronouns. We will have, so Sienna Day will be doing a presentation in just a moment on how to increase and maintain YAC membership in order to support your YAC projects. And then we will have presentations from 3 different sites across the state who are doing YAC projects. We will have a time for a Q&A at the end of the webinar, so please feel free to send questions as they come up, and then we'll just address them at the end during the Q&A. And you can use the chat box to send questions, or you can also use the Q&A function, whichever you prefer. When you are sending questions in through the chat box, make sure you have an option to either send chats to the panelists or to send them to the panelists and all of the attendees. So you can just choose when you're typing in a chat which one you would like to do. So our objectives for today are to review key features of successful YAC projects and review existing tools and resources for implementing YAC projects, and then learn about engaging and powerful YAC projects that are happening around the state. So you might remember these from our webinar last year, but we just kind of gave an overview of how to make a YAC project engaging and powerful. So the first thing is to make sure that it is meaningful. So connect the project to your group's mission and to community, health, or societal issues that youth are passionate about, and make sure that you get the youth's buy-in on what your projects are. It's also important to provide opportunity to be creative and build skills and to have fun. That you can do this through team building activities, social activities. I think sometimes we get so focused on our project that we forget just the value of spending time together and getting to know each other better. It's important to focus on youth-adult partnership. That's foundational. And to be clear about roles, expectations, goals, and timelines. So you can create structured opportunities for students to think about the roles that they can play in this projects, and then be really clear about who is doing what. Youth can help you to create structure within your group, and it's important to give youth an opportunity to help to create that structure, so they can help to create things like agendas and help with facilitating meetings as well. There are a lot of tools and great resources for YACs and for creating successful YAC projects. So I won't go through each of these now, but I will be following up with an email including all of these resources, and we'll also include these resources when we post the webinar to our site. So in just a moment, we are going to hear from Sienna Day, who is an Oregon School-Based Health Alliance student health advocate and also the Milwaukee YAC president. And let me just make sure, I'm just making sure I've got the tech. Okay. So Sienna, are you there?
Yeah, I just got on. Okay. So my name's Sienna. Again, I'm the student health advocate and I'm a Milwaukee YAC president, and I'm going to be talking to you about increasing and maintaining membership with things like YAC projects, because, you know, if you don't have students involved in your project, it's going to be really difficult. Okay, so the first step in increasing membership is to spark that initial interest, right? So if students are interested, they won't become involved with your YAC. So how do you improve this interest? Well, for you, you have to determine the why. And this is particularly for advisors, but you can also involve students in this. So why would students want to be involved with your YAC? What will they get out of it? Show students what they can gain by giving this time, because it's really valuable. Maybe it's easy to access volunteer hours they can use on college applications, or maybe experience for future careers. You have to determine these to convince students to exchange their time. Some easy ones that span across most clubs are networking opportunities, safe spaces to speak your mind, socializing, just general fun. Recognizing what students want out of your YAC will increase and maintain membership while creating stronger connections between YAC members. Nice. So now that you know why students should be interested in your YAC, you have to show them what it is. So to do this, you have to first understand your audience, which in this case is going to be that school population or maybe your community population. So do these students or youth respond more to social media or paper materials? What influences how students decide to attend? If you're first coming into a school, you'll not have a complete grasp on this, but over time, you'll really understand what's going to make the most effective outreach. But when you start on advertising, there's a couple of easy starting places: paper materials, social media, and just general word of mouth. So the easiest way to advertise in any school setting, community, or SBHC in general is with paper materials. By paper materials, I mean like posters, flyers, pamphlets, etc. Now you can make these as simple or as complicated as you would like. If your school has a design class like Milwaukee does, you can usually ask students to create designs for you at little to no cost. You can also easily have poster making day with your YAC. Get some colors and have members make eye-catching posters that you can post up around the school. You can also get on Google Docs and type up a simple who, what, why message. Shove some clip art in it, print it out, post them up. Simple as that. There's also tons of resources online for making posters. Pictochart, Canva, or Figma are some of the ones that are nice. But you really just want to make your posters a group experience, whether it's everyone putting design input on like a online creation or coloring with friends. Their simple pamphlets will give you interested students the information they need without having to dig it all up on their own. So another easy way you can reach out is through social media. You can have one person, either like a reliable member or your advisor, collect and post photos from events or meetings to showcase all the fun things you're doing. You can multi-post to Instagram, Snapchat, and any social media apps to create a public presence and connect with students. Social media is another good way to get connected and reach out to increase YAC awareness and membership, especially with youth. One thing that many clubs seem to ignore is the connections that members already have. So by regularly encouraging YAC members to bring in friends to meetings and events, you can gain new participants. It's also likely that the members you already have may be in other clubs or groups with similar goals. You can utilize this through joint club meetings where you hold discussions and get ideas from each group. Groups you should really look out for are like a GSA or like any LGBTQ clubs, any health career clubs or classes, and service clubs like National Honor Society or Key Club. There's also debate clubs that are really fun to have them with. These joint meetings can positively increase membership for both groups and create a network of reliable individuals for future big projects. So now that you have students interested and aware of your YAC, the next thing you have to focus on is making it easily accessible. Having complete understanding of all possible barriers that members could face and having solutions to these barriers will make your YAC a safe and understanding space while increasing and maintaining membership. Some of the most common obstacles for any student joining a club are transportation, other involvements, and social environment. The simplest way to understand and overcome these is to speak with students and offer resources. If a student says they can't come to a meeting, you respect that and send them any information you can to keep them in the loop. If a student says that they do not have transportation, see if students are willing to carpool or offer them public transportation passes if you can. This effective communication can reduce difficulty of participating in extracurriculars while creating a trusting and respectful environment. So ease is another big part. It can be pulled through to the maintenance of membership category, as many clubs fall apart due to this lack of consistency. By keeping a consistent meeting place and time, students are much more likely to attend. I personally believe that having weekly meetings and an assigned date and time after school is still the best position to be in, as it gives your groups enough time to discuss and plan effectively while still keeping a consistent schedule. But this really comes down to how your YAC operates. If a majority of your members can't attend after school due to conflicts, then you move to lunch or before school. You have to work with your group scheduling needs to maintain their participation. So another way to keep members regularly attending meetings and events is through an active stream of contact. So when you get any new members, make sure to get their contact information as soon as possible and ask what the easiest way to contact this. Keep this in like a spreadsheet or a document, and it'll be really easy to access later on. MyYAC specifically has a sign-in sheet for every meeting where everyone fills out their name, contact info if they are new, and answers an icebreaker. These sign-in sheets are a straightforward way to keep contact while starting the meeting off on a light note by discussing icebreaker answers. Once you have this contact information, members can send them consistently meeting and event reminders. You'll really keep in contact with students, and it'll, again, keep that trusting and solid environment. Sending out a quick text or email ensures that members remember to attend. Students have busy schedules, and losing track of events is a common occurrence, but one you can easily circumvent with a consistent stream of contact. So one of the most vital points of maintaining membership is keeping meetings engaging and interesting. This is also one of the hardest ones. The easiest way to determine what students will find interesting is through this direct ask. By asking students what they want out of their YAC experience, you're making a completely youth-led experience with the support of an adult. This is the perfect way to start off a new school year, as well as keeping these goals in mind throughout the entire year of YAC. It'll have you on track while sparking a continuous interest. Once you have these big picture goals of what your YAC wants to do, you can break them down into subsections and then projects of what you want to plan throughout the year. Each meeting should be working towards these goals, just to keep this continuous interest. When it comes to individual meetings, an agenda is an easy way to keep a whole group on track. It's fairly easy to veer off into different topics, especially in public health, which is such a broad subject. But a meeting agenda that everyone has access to will allow you to keep students engaged, but on topic. So when I'm speaking on this webinar, you have to realize that every group is different. While my YAC responds well to agendas, yours may not. By keeping that goal of interest, awareness, ease, communication, and engagement in mind, your group can increase and maintain YAC membership effectively. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sienna. So next up, we are going to be highlighting some YACs that are happening, or some YAC projects that are happening around the state. And we're actually going to be starting with a project at, we're going to be starting with a project at Sienna's YAC, actually, at Milwaukee. So Hannah Smith will be joining us to talk a little bit about their project, what made it engaging and powerful, and what she would recommend to others looking to do a similar project. So let me just make sure we can hear you, Hannah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, good morning or afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me on this webinar today. I'm going to talk about some youth research that we have been doing at Milwaukee High with our Youth Advisory Council. And what we decided to focus on was our school district's health curriculum, because we heard a lot of conversations throughout our meetings about how the curriculum isn't LGBTQ inclusive, and it doesn't talk enough about community resources. So we decided to have a focus group among our YAC members and to do another activity to help us decide how we wanted to gauge this. So we decided to create a survey to distribute to other students throughout the school to see what they thought about the health curriculum. So as a team, we created a 6-question survey, and we asked questions like, what topics do you feel more knowledgeable about after taking the health class? What information or topics do you need more information on after taking the health class? What gender and sexual identities were covered in detail in your class? And other questions to kind of gauge what they thought. Once we drafted this survey, students reached out to our principal to explain what we were trying to do, to give her the survey, and really just get permission to move forward. And we were really lucky that she was supportive of our cause. She just wanted us to work collaboratively with our health teachers to make sure that it was a seamless project and that we could really just work together for a common goal. So from there, we emailed the health teachers, explained the same process again, and they were very supportive of the survey because they want the best for their students as well. So it really was a mutually beneficial project. So we printed the surveys, we distributed them to both health teachers and had them distribute them to their health classes a week before finals. We were able to get about 250 responses, which we were really happy about. And a lot of the data reflected what we had seen in our own YAC. Many students said that LGBTQ students felt ignored, uncomfortable, and that there was really a need for more information on mental health resources. People did say they learned a lot about drugs and alcohol and sexual health, but we really wanted to address those issues about people feeling ignored, because it's supposed to reflect everyone in the school and throughout the community. So as we're going over the results and analyzing them, YAC members came up with an idea to bring the resources directly on campus. So we decided to plan our Milwaukee Wellness Week. So this was a week dedicated to community resources and student clubs that had similar messages, to do activities every day after school for an entire week, to just let students know what's available to them. So we, the students again went to our principal, pitched the idea. They used some data from research projects to show the need and how beneficial it would be, and she gave us the go. We were able to provide transportation every day after school that week. Usually the activity bus is only there twice a week, so we wanted to make sure that anybody could attend, try to eliminate as many barriers as possible. And then we did our outreach to partners we thought might be available or interested in participating. So we ended up having Monday be our Relay for Life spotlight. That is an initiative, an organization to raise awareness and money for cancer prevention and research. So we were able to get students there, talk about the program, kind of kick off the event and register people, which is kind of a timely process. And that went really well. And Tuesday, we highlighted our Gay Straight Alliance at Milwaukee and our Boost workout class that our student resource officer teaches twice a week. So GSA was able to talk about what they do, their mission, and then our student resource officer showed us some self-defense moves and conducted her normal Boost workout class, which is a safe space for anyone to join. Wednesday highlighted our Sources of Strength suicide prevention group. They had affirmation stations. They talked about self-care. They made some facial masks for students to take home. And we had our behavioral health counselor from the school-based health center talk about the mental health continuum, what self-care really means. And we also included our school psychologist to do some chair yoga and stretches for students who may be getting stressed in class and just need, a few motions to make them feel better. And then we had our partner from Providence's Teaching Kitchen come and talk about some cooking classes there and sample a quinoa bowl. Thursday highlighted our Habitat for Humanity group. It was a fundraiser. Students were able to buy a pot and paint was provided to paint those pots. And then you could buy a plant from Horticulture Club to put in said pot. And you could donate it if you wanted to Northwest Housing Alternatives. Lastly, on Friday, we had our Ascension Latinx group and our Multicultural Club highlighted. And Ascension taught us cumbia and some other dance moves, and Bollywood dancing was taught by our Multicultural Club. So it really was a cool week that had a lot of different activities going on. We wanted to make it, diverse and a variety of events for students to choose from. But we also were able to highlight so many things going on within the community and on campus within the student groups. And what made these projects really engaging and powerful was that they were youth-led completely. So YAC came up with the idea to have this event. One of our members made amazing graphics that you can see on this slide. We advertised that heavily on social media and around school. And while YAC was the backbone of the event, it was really cool to see each group and organization design their own programming within the week to kind of do and highlight whatever they thought was important. So that was really great for me, just to see everything come together. But it was also really great doing the research, and really, I felt like we were uplifting the voices of students who sometimes felt unheard or not seen or uncomfortable in their health classes. And so I think it's really powerful to, again, lift those voices and really teach our YAC members and students that we do have the power to change things and to work with our health teachers to make these strategies for education inclusive. And what I would recommend to anyone else wanting to take on a similar project is really just to emphasize collaboration. There are so many people within your school and your community that are experts within their field, and it can really enrich your own initiatives by involving them. And I think a lot of times we think we have to do everything ourselves, but if we're transparent and work collaboratively with teachers, staff, community partners, then it can really make the process smooth and ensure that no one feels left out, and it really just enriches the program as a whole.
Great, thank you so much, Hannah. And like I said earlier, you'll have a chance to ask Hannah questions during the Q&A after the rest of the presentations. But really excited to hear about this. This was like a jam-packed week and seems like was really successful. So thank you. So next up, we are going to have Trisha and Claire and Sarah speak from the CHURCHILL YAC. And I'm just making sure that their tech works. So let's see. Let's see, Trisha, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, great. Yes, I can. All right. So, yeah, do you all want to introduce yourself and then talk a little bit about your project?
Yes, thank you for including us in this webinar. I'm going to turn it over to our students, but just so you know, Sarah was not able to make it at the last minute, but we have another amazing student representing her, Jessie Kidd.
Hi, I'm Claire. I'm a student member of our Youth Action Council here at Churchill, and I have with me
Jesse. I use he, him pronouns. I'm also in the Youth Action Council.
Oh, and I use she, her pronouns. All right. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, great. So we started our YAC at Churchill back in October. And I had never really been a part of something like this before, and it was a really great opportunity for me and I think a lot of other students to kind of be able to communicate and talk about these issues that really matter to us in a safe space. Starting with the goal to give YAC members a forum to discuss topics that affect student health and safety on campus, and to have access to community members in decision-making positions to help make an impact.
It was a really empowering experience because the staff members involved made it really clear that we would be deciding, what was a priority for us to work on and what was actually relevant to our lives here at school.
Yeah, so our very first meeting, really what we started with was we had our adult community members who were kind of leading our YAC discussion kind of ask us, what are you interested in? What do you think is most important to talk about at Churchill? What are the most pressing issues happening at our school? And I think they did a really great job of kind of recruiting students from a variety of backgrounds, from different grades, freshman through senior, people with different identities, people who have different perspectives and opinions on different topics, so that we can really get a conversation going that kind of covers as many possible spots, so that we can try and get everyone's opinion and make sure that the solutions that we're trying to come up with are serving everyone, not just a portion of the population, but trying to serve our entire school.
Yeah, it was really a big concern for us that our students weren't just like visibly diverse, but also diverse in their activities and needs, and like many people in our YAC had Spanish as a first language, and we were aware of the different ways that we were diverse in our meetings.
yeah, it was really great to kind of be at this table talking with all these different students, some of which I had never met before, and kind of looking around and listening to people talk and seeing like, this is a group of people that not all of them look like me, not all of them speak the same language as me, but we all are able to come together and talk about these things that really matter to us, and just knowing and being conscious of the fact that I was in an area, a space where I got to hear so many different opinions from people coming from all different places was just really special to me.
Mm-hmm. As far as our guidelines, something that we really emphasized was listening. Should we ask him to go back? Is it possible to go back? Yeah. It was some things that I really felt supported by was the emphasis that we had on listening to understand instead of listening to respond, and making sure that all of the adults in the room were as equally on board as the students were. Yeah.
Our team of adults that we have sponsoring our YAC and kind of supervising and leading discussions and making sure that students feel like they have a voice did a really great job at Churchill of just making everyone feel welcome, which is something that's really special. And I think another thing, kind of going off of what Jesse was saying about the guidelines, is making sure that students understand that what they're saying doesn't leave that space, that it's a space for them to be able to share their truth and feel comfortable doing that, having an environment of confidentiality, so that no one has to worry about like saying something personal and then having that leave the room in a way that they wouldn't want it to.
Yeah.
Which I think students at our YAC do a really great job of it. I never feel uncomfortable sharing how I feel or sharing my experience when we have our meetings, because I know that students in our YAC are so respectful because of the guidelines we've established.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Next slide.
Yeah, next slide. Great. So the topics that we really chose to focus on in our YAC, focusing on intersectionality, social justice, and health and safety. Because we are working with our school-based health center, everything kind of comes back to health and safety. And even though we didn't choose to focus on like really like a traditional health issue, we focus more on the social justice aspect of things, because minority status and historically underserved populations, because that is so intertwined with how students experience health and safety in schools, that was really important for us to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, we really, something as you'll see later in our slides was one of the largest topics for us was microaggressions. And it was interesting once we started discussing how microaggressions affect our daily lives, that it affects, microaggressions are affected by our, like microaggressions that we receive are affected by, like our intersectionality as people, whether or not we are actually receiving social justice, whether or not that's something that is present within our community. And it really affects our health and safety on a daily basis.
Yeah, not just focusing on our intersectionalities of identities as like intersectionalities of race and gender and sexual orientation and mental health, but focusing on how all of those identities affect our access to health and safety at our school.
Yeah. And whether or not we can improve that with social justice.
Yeah.
Next slide.
So we came up with a mission statement at our first YAC meeting when we decided to focus on aspects of social justice. We came up with this mission statement to kind of guide our discussions for the rest of the year, which was Churchill's goal is to create an ongoing inclusive dialogue that seeks to educate, advocate, and eliminate discrimination nation. And I think it was really important for us to come up with this statement because it really sets a definite direction for us to go in with the discussions that we have.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think, yeah, okay.
Perfect.
So far at our YAC at Churchill, like Jesse was saying, we chose to focus on microaggressions because we felt that was really pervasive risk at our school to student health and safety. Focusing on microaggressions and how they intersect with health risks, including mental health and risk of substance abuse. The school district equity officer hosted trainings for our YAC students on how to identify microaggressions and respond to them when observed. So that was something that we focused on in our meetings that was really helpful. And I think one of the most powerful things that happened in our meetings was having students share experiences of microaggressions and just realizing that this was something that we had all dealt with.
Often teachers and staff members within our school just choose to turn a blind eye, and even though they see microaggressions occurring within their classrooms, they would much rather teach the lessons that they've already prepared instead of taking a second to address what is happening. Or they may not even recognize that a microaggression has occurred. And it was important for us that, and it was interesting to see within our meetings, people were sharing experiences that they had, microaggressions that they've experienced. And they were talking, I remember one kid saying that it was the first time they'd ever really talked about that. And it was also eye-opening for me, to see other students talking about microaggressions that they've experienced and realizing that I've either, been on the receiving end of similar things, or things like, oh, well, that's a question I may have asked. Like, that's something I may have done, and it gave us a chance to be more aware of our actions and how they affect others.
Yeah. Following our discussions about microaggressions, when we kind of had realized that this was something that we wanted to bring to our school community on a larger level, our supervising adults with our YAC asked our school's principal, and he carved out some time for our YAC to present on a professional development day to the staff of our high school and to feeder middle schools. So those are the middle schools that their students are coming to Churchill after they graduate from middle school, talking about microaggressions in the classroom and hallways, and that includes curriculum, which was a big part of our discussion, and what teachers and staff can do to support students. And we got some amazing positive feedback from the 4J assistant superintendent who was at that forum that we hosted, and also a lot of really great feedback from staff and teachers who attended.
It was really interesting in our discussions about microaggressions and about how students are represented in the classroom to see that 4J's curriculum was not at all really representative of students and their diversity. And we realized that it was critical to student success that they see themselves represented in the curriculum that they're being taught. And so hopefully in the future, we'll keep working towards having a more representative curriculum.
Yeah, that's definitely, I know Sienna was talking previously in her presentation about lack of representation of LGBTQ plus students in sex ed curriculum. We talked about that. We talked about lack of representation in history, math, science, and literature curriculum. That was really a big focus on our discussion about microaggressions.
And it was actually really apparent to us that the teachers who cared about representative curriculum were already sort of doing that. They were already taking time to highlight, look at these. In my science classes, I've had teachers, carve out little chunks of time to say, oh, look at these amazing scientists who are people of color who are doing this groundbreaking research. And so we know that teachers who who are already concerned about this or already, working towards this. But we're hoping to make this something more available across the board so that, teachers kind of have to, and it's not just left up to ones who are, committed to social equity.
Yeah, and also just because this isn't even something that teachers and staff are even aware that they're doing because of internal biases, trying to make staff and teachers aware that the curriculum that is offered by the state and district is not always representative of the student population, and trying to improve that. Next slide. So coming up, because of our little 1 week long winter blizzard, we missed the opportunity to attend the School Health Advocacy Day in Salem, which was really unfortunate. But coming up, we have some really exciting events that we're looking forward to. Next month, April, our YAC is going to be visiting the summit in Salem, which we're really excited about. And hopefully in May, we've been talking about hosting a school-wide student summit, inviting students from our school to kind of come and talk about these things. Not just the students that are in our YAC, but because these issues do affect everyone, inviting people to come and talk about this. So we talked about maybe focusing on sexual assault awareness and consent awareness. We talked about doing another rendition of our microaggressions panel that we did in February. There's a lot of topics on the table still, so we don't have a definite plan yet, but we're excited about the opportunity.
Thank you both so much for presenting on your project. We are gonna save your Q&A for the very end, and so if people have questions, please go ahead and type them in the question box right now, and we will we'll make sure to ask those questions at the end. So we missed you all at Advocacy Day too, but we're really excited that you're coming to the YAC Summit, and the work that you're doing is really powerful, and we're really excited to hear more about it in April. So I'll be providing a little more info on the YAC Summit at the end of our webinar. But next up, we have Kelby Chris and Drew Doctor, who are from Deschutes County, and I am just gonna, let's make sure their mics are turned on. And Kelby, are you there?
Hi, this is Kelby. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you.
Great.
So yeah, if you want to introduce yourself and then and tell us about your project.
Okay, so my name is Kelby, and I am the Youth Engagement Coordinator for Deschutes County. And so I facilitate, as part of that role, I facilitate 3 of the YACs here in Deschutes County. And I'll be speaking about 2 different projects that we did at 2 different YACs, and kind of a high-level overview. So if there's questions, I'm happy to elaborate at a later time. So the first one that I'll speak to was with our Design Justice class, and that's actually our YAC at Venn Senior High School. And so just an overview of the project, they focused on a mental health awareness week. And this began, the students surveyed the school to find more about student behaviors regarding mental health, as well as they wanted to assess student knowledge on the mental health resources available to students there. And then they took that information from the survey to really guide their action plan, which wound up being to create and implement a mental health awareness week. So this week included things like yoga and meditation were offered. There were student-led art activities during lunch. They also held kind of a gratitude board activity during lunch. They also created They have 1,800 kids in their school, and I think they made close to 1,800 positive affirmations to post on the walls throughout the school, and they were available for students to pull off and take down. Ashley, if you want to move on to the next slide, I just have like some photos and stuff. So that was one of their, or two of their flyers that they created. One was just a flyer advertising the week, and then the other one kind of detailed some of the events that were being carried out. Another thing that the week included, they partnered with outside agencies that were connected with mental health resources. So for example, Lines for Life came one day during lunch and tabled with the YAC, Family Resource Center. NAMI came as well. And then we also had Mosaic Medical come, which is our school-based health center sponsor. The YAC also created a resource brochure, and this was really specific to resources located in their school, but also resources outside of their school that students could call or text or email or however they needed to contact. But the brochure was created in a way that it was really student friendly in the way that the language, the graphics, everything was created by youth and really appealing to youth. And so this resource brochure was posted on, teachers had posted it on their doors, and they had stacks available for students in their classrooms. And those are just some pictures of the affirmations posted. They were like littered throughout the school, posted on the walls. And the picture at the bottom there is a picture of students presenting at an SIW, and I'll speak to that in a little bit here. So that's just kind of high level of overview of the project. And now I'll speak to kind of what made it really engaging and powerful. I think one of the main things for this project was really the process that we began with. We were brainstorming topics, and the students were talking about how there weren't any mental health resources. And as they were talking, they realized that there actually were resources, but no one knew about them. So this conversation really caused the students to be clear that they really wanted to focus on increasing awareness of the mental health resources. There were 33 students in this class, and they knew that if they were under the impression that there weren't any resources, that they knew other students throughout the school really didn't have an understanding of all the resources available. So I think just this process of kind of waking up and realizing that they were misunderstood and didn't know about the resources, it really caused them to kind of own the project, and it became their mission to really educate themselves on the resources, the services offered, and then how to access those services, but then also share that information with other students. Another piece that made this project really powerful was that the students worked with the admin team to be able to present their research during an SIW, which is School Improvement Wednesday. And it's a required all staff meeting. There's one every single Wednesday, and they're really sacred. They don't usually give time to students, but we were given 8 minutes one day, which was really, really awesome. And they were given the opportunity to present their findings from the survey, as well as present their plan for their Mental Health Awareness Week. And they offered staff opportunities to get involved and help with the cause. The last component that I'll speak to about how it really impacted the engagement, students were able to collaborate with other agencies, and I spoke to this a little bit in the overview, but they were able to collaborate with other agencies like Lines for Life, Family Resource Center, Mosaic Medical, which really added to the overall impact. I think the students really enjoyed meeting folks from the community and welcoming them into their school. And then lastly, if others are looking to do a project like this, one thing that I would recommend, I think it's critical to work with a school champion who has knowledge of the day-to-day operations, but also has a trusted relationship with administration. In our case, we worked with a school counselor, but I encourage that because there's a lot of ins and outs and things that you need to get approved, and just things that as I'm not a school employee, I'm just not privy to. And so having a school champion that has that knowledge, but also has trusted relationships with admin, I think is really crucial to the success of the project. Okay, so I'll talk about briefly about another school. This class is called Embrace, and this is our sister's high school, YAC. And they did a project around encouraging healthy coping skills. So just a brief overview of the project. Students worked together to create an interactive presentation that was really geared toward middle school students with the purpose of increasing knowledge of healthy coping skills, decreasing stigma regarding mental health, and then increasing knowledge of mental health resources. So these, our YAC students presented in various classes from 6th through 8th grade. And they came to this was a YPAR project. So we wound up surveying students to find out more about student needs, students' knowledge of healthy coping skills, and student knowledge of the mental health resources. So for this project, what made it engaging and powerful, I think the process really created a foundation where the students took ownership of the project. We brainstormed project ideas, and each student in the group mentioned something regarding mental health. And through that conversation, it was decided that they really wanted to give students additional tools for their mental health toolbox, so to speak. So they, again, it was very much student-led, and I think that really allowed the students to take ownership. Another point that added to the impact was the peer-to-peer model. So these students presented to a younger group of students, and when we were reflecting, myself and the YAC, they talked about how fun and empowering it was to present to the middle schoolers, and then that they were also really surprised at how engaged the middle schoolers were during their presentation. So I think this really helped the YAC, not only with their public speaking skills, but also with their confidence, and then just with their knowledge of the information. They learned a ton through their research process, and then with presenting it, I think they really, they owned it, and they really had a deep wisdom of that knowledge. So. And then lastly, for other people who are looking to do a similar project, I have 2 points that I would encourage. The first is that I would encourage students to engage with community partners. I love working with the YAC, but they see me every day or close to every day. And having people from the outside coming in for interviews was really, really helpful and really added to the engagement. So we had people from behavioral health, also from the school-based health center, as well as teachers. Students all interviewed for their project to learn more about coping skills and what that might look like, how we can encourage healthy coping skills in the school environment. So again, the students having interviewed, they learned a ton of information from the interview about mental health and coping skills. But again, it also really increased ownership and accountability with having to maintain appointments and connect with adults from outside of their school. The other point that I would encourage is to begin communicating with teachers as soon as possible to set up days and times to present. I find that teachers, pretty much have their curriculum mapped out, and if you don't connect with them early, they might be kind of booked up, so to speak. And then also alongside of that, many teachers will want you to present to all of their classes just to keep their classes in sync, you know, so all of their Health 1 classes or whatever the class might be, which is wonderful, but also keep in mind student capacity. We found that presenting gets kind of tiring as well as they need to miss school. So just kind of starting that planning process early around, you know, how many teachers are we going to reach out to and how many classes do they have and how can we space it out so students don't miss that much school or have time to make up the work in between presentations. So that's it for me, and I'll pass the baton over to Drew.
Hi there. Can everyone hear me?
I can hear you.
Perfect. Wonderful. All right. Well, I'll make it quick to respect everyone's time, and I know we still have some updates and questions, but my name's Drew, and I am the supporting adult for the Lapine High School YAC, just south of Bend. So I work with Kelby regularly, and I just facilitate the one YAC, and I'm an AmeriCorps Vista member, so this has kind of been one of my bigger projects and definitely my most enjoyable project. So the project I'm talking about today is the youth-friendly school-based health center revision process, and I'm just going to give a few recommendations for folks who might want to do something similar with your YAC. So last year we're kind of starting from scratch, and we have about 15 different students now occasionally coming to meetings. We try to hold one meeting at lunchtime every Tuesday each week, so we do have kind of minimal time to work with, but we found that that works out really well. And I know I believe it was Sienna earlier who mentioned kind of transportation barriers and struggling with finding a time to meet. That has worked out really well. But kind of in the developing stages of the YAC, we knew that we wanted to partner with the school-based health center, and the school-based health center staff, the supporting adults and clinic staff there really identified an interest in getting some more student input to support their clinic. So yeah, last spring we held a series of focus groups with the YAC members, and we had various providers from the school-based health center kind of come co-facilitate those events. And what the students really expressed is that, as you can see in the picture there's kind of a little sign marking the space itself, and this building is separate from the school, so students have to walk across the parking lot, and it's kind of an isolated space, so it's somewhat difficult to find. And students were expressing that they really didn't even know where that space was in the first place. So that was kind of a discovery that came from that engagement process that was really valuable. And the students came up with the idea to have freshmen tour. So every incoming freshman would tour that space on their first day. And we found that throughout that process, there was actually upperclassmen who didn't know that space existed, that didn't know that the school-based health center was a resource for themselves and their peers for check-ins. And we also identified that students were very interested in kind of taking that space itself and finding ways to make it kind of a more youth-directed, youth-friendly space. So that's been what we've been working on since. So we've had multiple kind of youth-guided tours of that school-based health center space. We've had adult supporting adult members at the clinic, guide that process. So actually in the last slide, you could see students touring that space, and we kind of, those YAC members were kind of mimicking the patient experience and telling us what they, what their thoughts were on how that space could be more comforting and more conducive to their visit. And I'll keep it quick here. So we're currently in the process of finding some furniture and having the youth pick out painting colors to accent the walls, and then also finding ways to kind of keep those students involved in their school-based health center space year in and year out. And just seeing, we just have a couple minutes left here. So recommendations I would have regarding other folks thinking of starting a project like this. I think very important to establish relationships. I think that's something multiple folks have mentioned on this call. Really valuable to establish meaningful relationships with all members of the community. This space in particular is not just used as a school-based health center for students themselves, but also for other community members. So it's kind of a shared space for adults, and WIC, the WIC team with the county uses that space. So we've really prioritized engaging not only the students, but also the other members of the community who use that space. Other big recommendation I'd have is just not to rush this process. The YAC members and the students are really the subject matter experts on their own health and what's important to keeping their peers and their community healthy. And because of that, we've really prioritized allotting adequate time for those students to give their input, to tour that space. And because of that, it's been a really meaningful process. And I think my last recommendation would just be to think beyond the space itself. So in this case, it's not just going to be about picking out new furniture and having youth kind of come up with different decorations and artwork, but also thinking about the advertising for the space itself, and maybe allotting for kind of youth-specific hours and time slots that they can visit, especially in a shared community clinic space like we have here. So that is pretty much the end of my update, and I'd be happy to answer any more questions following the webinar.
Thank you, Drew, and thank you to Kelby as well. These are such great projects, and it was so great to hear from all of you today. We actually did not receive any questions, probably because you were all so thorough, so thank you. So we are going to skip through the Q&A, but I wanted to let you know that we do have some upcoming events, including the YAC Summit, which we hope you'll all join us at on Friday, April 19th in Salem. You can get more info on our website. We have transportation reimbursement available, and we'd love to see you there. And we also have a webinar on destigmatizing mental health with YACs coming up in May, and there's more information on that as well. So we'll send more info out. In the meantime, if you have any questions for anyone who participated in the panel today, here are all of their email addresses. So please feel free to reach out. Thank you all so much, and we will be following up shortly with more information on resources and information to help you with your YAC projects. Thank you.